Thank you, Mr. Chair. In my opening statement, I did express some concern about recent trends on how Congress provides federal assistance to wastewater infrastructure projects. Several of you noted, rightfully, that the federal share of individual projects has been decreasing over time to a point some of you noted government invests less than 10% of annual water and sewer capital costs. Several of you also note that the current mix of federally subsidized loans and leveraged federal financing does not work for every community. Is it time for Congress to rethink the trend, as my colleague has stated, envision a renewed federal water wastewater program to address the infrastructure needs of communities facing affordability concerns, such as those with lower income populations or smaller or rural communities? Also, the federal government played a significant role in financing the first generation of water and wastewater systems immediately following the enactment of Clean Water Act. Is it time for us to renew the role for certain communities to implement in the next generation of projects? Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Ranking Member Napolitano. Good question, and in California, we certainly support efforts to look at affordability for water and also affordability and investment in disadvantaged and economically challenged areas. We believe that there is a great need for grant programs to continue. We recognize that the funding landscape has changed dramatically, and loans are actually a very valuable tool, the SRF program. But in addition, grants for those economically challenged areas we think is very helpful to both fund their capital needs and perhaps in the future O&M needs. With regard to this Safe and Clean Drinking Water Revolving Fund, as my colleagues on the panel have urged the subcommittee, increased levels of funding are very important. We're really on our third, perhaps even our fourth cycle of improvements since the adoption of the Clean Water Act, and those improvements are becoming more expensive and more time intensive to implement, and so that funding is vital to support our local agencies.
Mr. St. Pierre.
So I think lower income concerns are a major issue and a barrier for full price for water. I think at the federal level, it really would be helpful for some kind of a program, whether it's a water ratepayer assistance program, to make water affordable. I think that at the local level, if we could charge full load pricing, a lot of these things become a lot more affordable, but that is the issue. It's lower income concerns that really keep water from that full load price. Also, I do believe in partnerships with other communities. Chicago, we do provide grant programs for disadvantaged communities. The economy of scale issue, I have 5 million customers. I certainly can afford a lot more than a system that has 100,000 customers. So I can afford that kind of help. I think that economy of scale issue needs to be looked at, and the regionalization of water needs to be considered in a variety of venues.
Ms. Cooper.
Thank you, Ranking Member Napolitano. I believe there's a place with public-private partnerships as far as the one thing that it needs to be looked at is community by community. That's why we've been focused on this integrated planning. For example, in Florida, we actually share a municipal service with a municipal service district with 5 other communities, but our water is independent. So when you're looking at this, we've been looking at least being granted the ability to address it on a local demand need. As far as the affordability, again, going back to my statements and the presentation on the evaluation, we don't want to displace those costs on the people that can afford. I believe that ties into a grant system that we should go back to the original, so wisely put in your presentation and your questions in regards to going back to a mix of grants and state revolving fund increases. I don't think there's another way to avoid the displacement of some of those costs without some kind of program. As such is your recommendation.
Mr. Franklin.
Thank you, Ranking Member Napolitano. I guess I would make one point. I'd like to see access to the state revolving loan funds for clean water available to all. A lot of people are under the misconception that companies like mine, utilities, can make money on low interest. And that's a fallacy. The reality is public utility commissions only allow us to pass through interest. And since all federal taxpayers pay into these through their taxes, we should allow all federal taxpayers, including customers of utilities, to access these low interest funds.
Thank you, Ms. Chair.